August 12, 2000, 11:28. A seismic station in Norway detected the blast 470 kilometers from the coast at a depth of 40 meters, with an estimated force of 150 to 200 kilograms of TNT. 11:42 a.m., just 136 seconds later, a second, far more powerful explosion erupted at the same location, this time at a depth of 100 meters, unleashing the equivalent of 5 tons of TNT, a blast strong enough to level an entire city block. The beginning of the tragedy. The Kursk Submarine, Project 949, was a Russian nuclear submarine designed for operations as part of the Northern Fleet. Its mission was to patrol the Arctic waters and maintain combat readiness. On August 12, 2000, during a training exercise, a practical torpedo exploded in the fourth torpedo compartment of the Kursk. The vessel suddenly sank to the seabed at a depth of 108 meters, and a second explosion then destroyed the entire bow section of the submarine. Most of the crew in compartments 1 through 3 perished immediately or within minutes. The survivors gathered in the sealed 9th compartment. Yet the most significant aspect of this tragedy is how 23 survivors from the explosion fought desperately to stay alive. Initially, they decided to wait for help, relying on the compartment's airtight design and the calculated oxygen reserves intended to last for 24 hours. The compartment was engineered to maintain stable pressure and sufficient oxygen for a full day. However, shortly after the accident, the pressure dropped to 0.6 kilograms per square centimeter, an immediate warning sign. The regenerative system's V64 plates, designed to produce oxygen, were nearly exhausted. Within an hour, the emergency lighting powered by batteries began to fade, reducing visibility and compounding the stress on those inside. At a critical moment, technical oil leaked from a damaged tank and contaminated one of the regenerative plates. This oil caused the plate to overheat and ignite, leading to a rapid loss of oxygen as the combustion released a large volume of carbon dioxide. According to the notes of Captain Lieutenant Sadalenko, within 3 hours, the sailors' conditions deteriorated significantly. Many experienced severe weakness and labored breathing from inhaling toxic gases. Why a self-rescue was impossible. The crew's inability to escape on their own was rooted in several critical factors. After more than 3 hours under increased pressure, any attempt at a free ascent, the only possible exit method by partially flooding the compartment to equalize pressure, was nearly suicidal. Rapid decompression from such a depth would have led to severe physiological trauma or instant loss of consciousness. Moreover, the automated pressure equalization in the escape hatch posed a high risk. Any abrupt pressure change could have trapped a sailor within the hatch, making rescue nearly impossible. Thus, despite their desperate efforts, the extreme physical demands and hazardous environmental conditions rendered a self-rescue unfeasible. Could the crew have made a mistake? Some experts, such as Ryazantsev, argued that the crew of the Kursk had never before fired torpedoes of this type and had not conducted practical torpedo firings for over 3 years. He also insisted that the active inspection and degreasing of the technical air pipelines was signed with forged signatures. Although this information has not been corroborated by other sources, it has been frequently cited due to the expert's authority. According to him, it was not the fault of the submariners, but the failure of the commanders to properly prepare them for handling the most powerful and complex torpedo, 6576-A, in the Russian Navy. As the signs of deterioration became unmistakable and rescuers from the Northern Fleet failed to arrive within the expected time frame, the crew was forced to make a desperate decision. Under these extreme conditions, a self-rescue became their only chance for survival despite the enormous risks. The sole available method involved partially flooding the compartment to equalize the internal pressure with the external water pressure. However, this process required immense physical exertion, efforts the sailors could no longer muster in their rapidly worsening state. When additional regenerative plates were installed, technical oil inadvertently spilled onto one of them. The oil ignited the plate, and as it burned, a large amount of carbon dioxide was generated. The flame only extinguished when almost no oxygen remained in the compartment. In a matter of minutes, the compartment was filled with a lethal concentration of toxic gas. Just 1 or 2 deep breaths were enough to cause immediate loss of consciousness. None of the sailors managed to activate their individual breathing apparatuses, and most casualties were later found on the upper deck, where respiratory protection was absent. What conclusions did the investigation reach? The criminal case regarding the sinking of the Kursk was initiated by the Chief Military Prosecutor's Office under the charge of violation of safety rules for the operation of maritime transport. The investigation into the disaster lasted for 2 years. As Vladimir Ustinov stated in 2002, the investigation uncovered multiple violations on board the submarine. The emergency buoy alarm system and the emergency antenna ejection system, both crucial for locating a sunken submarine, had been deactivated. Additionally, the SNIGEAR system, a type of black box that recorded internal communications, had also been turned off. However, the primary cause was determined to be a manufacturing defect in a 65 to 76 PV kit torpedo. This torpedo had been produced at the SM Kirov machine building plant in Almaty, and by 2000, its service life was nearing expiration. According to the investigation, micro cracks in the oxidizer tank seal allowed hydrogen peroxide to leak into the torpedo tube, triggering a chemical reaction that released heat and oxygen. The torpedo first caught fire and then exploded inside the confined space of the torpedo tube. The explosion blew off the rear cover of the tube, and the blast wave, along with torpedo fragments, caused the detonation of other torpedoes. This led to a second, far more powerful explosion in the first compartment, where multiple torpedoes were stored. It was this secondary explosion that destroyed the forward section of the submarine, obliterating the first, second, and third compartments. This tragedy resulted from a catastrophic combination of technical failures and extreme conditions. A dramatic drop in pressure, a leak of technical oil that ignited the regenerative system, the rapid release of toxic gases, and a sharp fall in oxygen levels. Moreover, the impossibility of executing a self-rescue due to the extreme underwater pressure and the dangerous risks associated with decompression deprived the crew of any viable chance of survival. On that fateful day, the men of the Kursk fought against relentless time and unforgiving technical malfunctions, culminating in their tragic demise.